Alrighty. Let me get myself organized here. I was I was had my laptop open and my computer died, or not died, but like I've got like a circuit breaker problem. And so hello everybody. Thank you so very much for joining me. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Let me put the join link in the clipboard. Okay. Oops. Is that going to work? All right. I'm trying to copy that into the clipboard. I think I did it twice. There we go. So if you'd like to join, if you'd like to talk about how you what you thought of the what you thought of that irreverent video, but it was both irreverent, and I also wanted to and thank you Crow 5x5. I wanted to, and Cinnamon Control 5x5. All right, Crow. I wanted to not only be, irreverently saying, I don't use R in my explorations, but I also wanted to take the time and just very quickly kind of describe with just a few words, what those explorations were about. Anyway, Crow, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So did you enjoy my little silly video?
A lot, because it reminded me when I first joined this debate. I was still aimless. I had some ideas, but then I saw your channel, and instead of trying to debunk the flat Earth, I decided to prove every doubted aspect of the globe and follow your path. And
Okay.
so I enjoyed this memory again.
I appreciate that. Yeah, there was some blast from the past from like 5 or 6 years ago. Welcome, Timothy. You are live.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop on real quick because I used to watch the flat Earth debate stuff. It was like car crash comedy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And but I got sick of it, so I left, and I popped my head back in, and I saw the discussion, I guess, you had with Nathan. And your patience is remarkable. I've never known a more patient man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It helps being a school teacher. I teach some pretty tough kids in inner city Philadelphia. I mean, my kids are great, but they've thrown both barrels at me. So I just try to to let it roll off my back. We've got a new member. Thank you so much, Johnny Ragadoo. I really appreciate the support. Thank you so much. But yeah, the thing is, anybody could do it. Like, people say, "Oh, that's your superpower," right? That's your superpower, being patient. But like, literally anybody could do that. Here's what I think, Timothy. Somebody who's coming after me with such bile, with such anger, they cannot be a happy person. So it's not about me. If they're insulting me, if they're yelling at me, if they're using profanity, it's not about me. It's about them. What they're doing is they're holding up a mirror. And I just have to feel sorry for them, which means I cannot respond with anger, profanity, because then I would be holding up a mirror to me. So I really appreciate the kind words, Timothy.
Well, I hope you didn't get riled too much by what he said about your son, because you are a fantastic role model for all children.
I appreciate that.
Just keep it up. Yeah, keep going, and you're a good voice to have in this weird community.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the thing is, the whole thing about live your life as an example. I just try to be an example. I'm not perfect. I do make mistakes in these arguments sometimes. Also, I've gotten criticism where like, oh, you just let Nathan steamroll over you. You just provided him a venue for his show. And I was like, okay, there's truth to that. But, I believe in free speech, and I think he revealed himself to be,
He did indeed.
He was. But I just encourage everybody, don't get angry when you're arguing with somebody, you're debating with somebody, and they get angry and they get abusive. You can either walk away or show kindness. I'm snarky, once in a while, but I try my best. But I really appreciate the kind words.
All right, man. Well, that was an easy sub from me, so I'm part of the crew now.
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much. So Crow, what are your thoughts? So, do you have any videos lined up on the back burner?
I wanted to make a video response to Kyle Adams. Did you see? Yes.
Yes, yeah, Kyle Adams. I was just thinking his, one of his most recent ones. He did one on cyclones and anticyclones, but then he did one on how like lunar eclipses prove the globe. So, but he's a sweet guy. He's very sincere.
Yes, I agree with that. So just that's the next video that I would love to do.
Okay, which video? Which one of those topics are you gonna tackle?
Well, the cyclone, I already made a comment that for any, what do you call it, a swarm?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Swirl, like something going in circle. Swirl. I don't
Oh,
like to
swirl,
use the
swirl.
term.
Yes, SWIRL,
Yeah.
swirl. Yes.
So my comment was that we use the right hand thumb for the northern hemisphere.
Okay.
So if the air is rising up, curl your fingers.
Ah.
If the air is going down, that's high pressure area.
Right.
Curl your fingers.
Okay.
And it's opposite in the southern hemisphere. That was it.
Interesting.
And
So the right hand rule is used in physics, all the time. So you're saying the right hand rule applies to weather patterns in the northern hemisphere.
yes.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's really strange. Well, not really strange, because some globers don't know this. They think that only hurricanes has this circle, but also high pressure regions has the opposite one.
Right.
Degree or less. Yeah.
Right. And oftentimes people don't realize that, you have a high pressure system and a low pressure system. And what does that mean? And, I first learned when I took a meteorology course in college, where it's like when air is moving up for whatever reason, when air is moving up, it's pushing down on the earth less, right? It's moving away from the earth. So you got lower pressure. And the thing is, rising air usually causes weather, like that's where cumulus clouds come from. And so you got these hurricanes, and it's just a massive, massive low pressure system. So the air is coming up and it's going through the dew point and creating all these powerful clouds.
Well, my father was a meteorologist.
Wow. Okay. So interesting. The sun rose in the left-hand rule. The sun rose in the west. I think you're being funny, but it has nothing to do with the sun, because it's 100% I'm sorry, because the sun, obviously, because of the rotation. So essentially, if the Earth were rotating the other direction, I get you. I got my wires crossed. No, you're exactly correct, Johnny. If the sun rose in the west, it would be a left-hand rule, but only in the northern hemisphere. But yeah, because like I was thinking, but it's the sun going around the earth, and it's like, wait a minute, the sun doesn't go around the earth. Like I lost my bearings for a second. But yeah, the thing about Kyle's video is that he didn't understand that the word anticyclone, it's got a super, super simple definition. It's a high pressure system, right? A high pressure system, and so the air, if the air is going in a circle around the high pressure system, then you're going to have the winds are going to be going in the opposite direction from a hurricane. But I was actually thinking about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, as I said, he's a good guy, and we're kind of debating on Facebook, and I think he he might think that I'm the angry type guy, but no, I try to be like you, and he's also like you. And if you remember Flat Earth Brothers, do you know them?
Flat Earth Brothers. I vaguely recall them from a year ago.
Yeah, yeah. He's also a very calm person. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Eh,
I'd like to take a chance and make a petition here
Okay.
for the next video of you. I made a comment on your community post. I'm not sure if you got it or not.
Yeah, the thing is, the community posts have been really, really super busy, and so I
Yeah.
do apologize if I didn't see it. Let me. I want to take this down. So go ahead.
Yeah. So you know, after a football match, when they say the ball position and fouls and things like that.
Yeah. No, when you say football, do you mean like what Americans would call soccer?
Yes, soccer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me again. What's happening in the game? The ball is stopped.
No, it's about who talked more than who in that Discord discussion.
Oh, okay. Who talks? Okay.
So that's one point. Who talks more times or more words? I don't know how you're gonna do it. Who said the bad words? Who interrupted? And interruptions are two times. Like you can interrupt him uh, briefly, but he continue what he was saying, or you can interrupt him and totally hijack the conversation. So it's things like that, and I would love to see statistics with graphs and things. It would be educational. I
Right.
think so.
Yeah. So were you thinking specifically in terms of like the Discord server, or were you thinking about because one person mentioned about my conversation with Nathan about wouldn't
Yes.
it be interesting to know, was that you that had made that suggestion about like a bar graph or something, pie chart?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So I was actually thinking about doing something like that very, very specifically. I was midway through the project. When I say midway, I was like 1/10 the way through of transcribing the conversation, and YouTube's closed captioning system seems to have glitched out, and I think maybe I don't know. It's very ingenious how it works. You're typing, and then it's also trying to match what you're typing to the time code, and it's a really ingenious system. But I think I broke it, and so I got kind of frustrated. But so I think I may give up on the concept of like transcribing that entire conversation. But if I did get it transcribed, like that was one of my thoughts. If I did get the conversation completely transcribed, then I could actually map out, who spoke more than who did the interrupting. I mean, because there were times that I interrupted him because he was talking after interrupting me, and so I was trying to get it. I was trying to get back in, and so therefore that necessitated me interrupting. So, but to be honest, I really don't want to spend too much time. I mean, it could be a fun exercise. I loved, dissecting, quantum eraser, that time. But I think with Nathan Oakley, I think it's kind of a special situation. I had a very prominent globe earther. I'm not going to name who. A very prominent, very well liked globe earther basically asked me if I would like to do a collaboration show where we sort of dissect the conversation, and I politely declined because I want to treat it a little. I mean, I could be a little snarky on the side, but like when I really dive into the argument that he was making, I want to be kind of mindful that I don't think he's coming from a healthy place, and so I kind of feel bad, in that regard, and then I want to be respectful of whatever stuff he might be going through. So if that makes sense. So I'm not going to give him the quantum eraser treatment. I'm not going to give him the Dr. Zach treatment. Yeah, that's a good it's a good suggestion, TJ. But I am going to go into the actual argument of what he was saying and the logical fallacies. I'm going to go into all that, but I want to do it in a respectful manner, and not, like rub his face in it, if that makes sense.
It makes sense when I'm talking to flat Earth math. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say to everybody else in the room, you are welcome to join. I'm posting the StreamYard link. Oh, Brenda's here. I'm so sorry, Brenda. I am so sorry, Brenda. Brenda, I hope you haven't been waiting long. I'm so sorry. I was so distracted. Welcome, Brenda.
I was just here.
Okay, welcome.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes.
Okay. Continue on. I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, it's Vinny just mentions the debate in 2017. No, I was just filling air. No, Brenda, please, how would you like to join our conversation? Jump in.
Oh, I have things to say about his claim that you are begging the question. Right? That's wrong. I don't know if you want me to go into it. But the claim is made by Nathan Oakley and many in his circle that it seems to be basically that whenever a glober uses the word if, this is somehow begging the question. And that's wrong. Because when you're doing an experiment, if the Earth is a globe, right, then we will see a certain result of this observation.
So you're presupposing the globe. Is that what you're saying?
That's what they're saying. Yes, but that's not begging the question. That is a hypothesis, and that's testing your hypothesis. We're not concluding that, a good way to put this, one way to put this logically is like, say, if it rains, the street will be wet. Right. And that's not begging. We're not begging the question there, because we don't conclude that the street is wet, therefore it has rained. We would say the street is wet, and this lends support or is confirmatory towards the hypothesis that it has rained, because it could be that somebody had their sprinkler on and the street sweeper went by, and therefore the street is wet for different reasons. So what we need to do is to falsify hypotheses, but falsification doesn't get you to proof, right? So it's actually not modus ponens as they're trying to say it. It's science works by modus tollens.
Yeah. Well, more specifically, they would accuse you of saying of affirming the consequent. So you say, if it rains, the street is wet. The street is wet, and they're accusing you of saying, therefore 100% it rained, and you're like, no, that's in the realm of possibilities. That's one of the possibilities. It lends support for rain. We could actually find other data. Now, T. Brown is challenging you, Brenda. He says that's not a hypothesis. That's begging the question. So, yeah, I'm totally with you, Brenda. But they misrepresent our argument, or they misread it. I'm not really sure what's going on.
Well, I believe it's a deliberate misrepresentation by Nathan Oakley and Quantum Eraser in order to prejudice their followers against any arguments that would tend to falsify their belief, right? So I believe that Nathan Oakley knows that the Earth is a globe, and that he is being dishonest and in an attempt to maintain his followers. That's my belief.
Yeah, and I'd rather not get into that. I know a lot of Globers on my side. They take a cynical view, and that's okay. I would rather not focus on that. John Watson says you're not having a debate about a globe if you can't first describe how you got R. That's the starting point. And John, you're dead wrong. You're dead wrong. How do you measure the radius of something that you don't even know the shape of? How do you find the radius of a circle? How do you find the radius of a sphere? It's two completely different procedures. So, John, you have to figure out the shape of what we're on first. You can't measure, like the technique of measuring radius of a sphere versus a circle is completely different.
How do you feel about the fact that Aristotle preceded Eratosthenes by a few hundred years, and it was Aristotle who taught that we can know that the Earth is round, and he gave a number of reasons why that was, because we see ships going over the horizon, they disappear gradually, and various things like that. So Eratosthenes had, you can sort of equivocate on whether or not he knew. You could simply say that he had the hypothesis or the supposition that the Earth either highly probably was round, was a globe in shape, that he had a high degree of confidence in the hypothesis that the globe was round, and that part of what he was doing was hypothesis testing by attempting to measure the globe. If the measurement has failed, he would have falsified the hypothesis.
Yeah, I disagree with you there. I disagree with you because there's no way his measurement could fail. The measurement that he did, it completely 100% applies to a flat Earth as well as a globe Earth. So I actually, I do disagree with
But
you.
not if the rays of light from the sun are parallel.
Well, oh, okay, but he would not, and that's one aspect of the story. You are correct, but that's one aspect of the story that, like, how does one know the rays of the light from the sun are parallel? You could say
Aristarchus had an argument for that, though.
Okay.
Which was that we observe the shadow on the shadows on the moon, and the angle of the shadows on Earth.
Okay.
And that therefore the sun must be very far away.
Okay. No, that's brilliant. That
was literally Aristarchus's argument, wasn't it?
I don't
correct.
I don't know. I'm not familiar.
Maybe somebody
with
can
his...
check. Maybe somebody can check.
Yeah.
But,
no. I that aspect of looking at the moon being lit, and then I call it the lunar proxy. I come up with these silly little titles for things, but like if you hold a ball, preferably like a white, like a styrofoam ball or something, a white ball that kind of matches the color of the moon, and you literally hold it up right in front of the moon, a daytime moon, so that you're lit by the sun, and you look at the moon being lit by the sun, and then you just happen to notice, coincidentally, it's the exact same illumination. I did not understand that part of it. I didn't know that was part of the argument.
Well, I believe that was Aristarchus's argument.
Okay.
Because he attempted to measure the distance to the sun. He made an initial attempt. And I believe that was part of his argument, was that the rays of light coming from the sun must be far away,
right?
Because the moon, we notice is we don't know how far away it is, but it's far away. And if there is no observable disagreement in the angle of the shadows from the moon, and say, for instance, from the styrofoam ball that I hold up, then the sun must also be either they must be parallel, or it must be very far away so that we can't discern any distinction between the angle of the shadows.
Right.
Can I add something?
Oh, please.
Yeah. So if you hold a ball like the styrofoam ball that you're talking about in front of you, and you see the terminator line exactly in the middle to a light source, if that light source is very far, then the separation angle between the ball and the light source is going to be 90 degrees. So
yes, right. But it's very tricky because the quarter moon, getting a quarter moon at like an exact 50% is darn near impossible, especially since the terminator line, you've got craters and things, so the terminator line is never going to be a ruler straight line. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I calculated it that if I get like 89 degrees, I think the distance would be 100 times the sun for the moon, something like that.
Right, right,
So, which is still too far.
right. Yeah, there's but it is interesting getting back to Eratosthenes that I think that like his starting point, and of course who knows what was going through his mind, but my point is that if he's doing a two-step procedure where step one is the Earth is a globe, then step two, is to measure the size. Like then, like he knew it was he knew it was a globe. Like he couldn't not know it was a globe. If he thought it was flat, then measuring these angles would be kind of silly. But it's very interesting what Brenda says about knowing the distance of the
Also,
sun.
yeah, also it was taught in the academy, and the academy existed for hundreds of years. It was
Right.
the Earth being a globe was taught at the academy for hundreds of years until the academy fell, sometime around the Roman Empire. So I forget when.
Okay. So, but it's interesting. But one of the things that like Sleeping Warrior, he was pushing really really hard in the comments a couple days ago, and it seems to be that if they can undermine Eratosthenes, however, saying, "Oh well, you don't know what he knew. You don't know that he knew the Earth was a globe, or how do you know he knew?" Like if they can undermine the Eratosthenes story, then they make it seem like it was a bunch of dominoes. That the reason why you and I have this crazy belief that the Earth is a globe is a descendant of a belief that we were handed from Eratosthenes. And it's like if you falsify Eratosthenes, it's the fruit of the forbidden tree. Excuse me, I have to. How do I cough? Sorry about that. I had to cough. Fruit of the forbidden tree. Get rid of Eratosthenes, and therefore you get the globe is no more. It's like, well, it actually doesn't work like that. Like science isn't a matter of handing down belief systems. Like religion maybe, right? But science is not like, here's a belief system. You have to believe this, and then you go and take it further.
We can do the Eratosthenes observation or measurement or experiment, however you want to call it.
Right.
We can do it ourselves, and in fact, Slice Barcade did.
Yes, and school children. It's sometimes they call it the Equinox Project. Sometimes they call it the Eratosthenes Project. Sometimes I've heard it called the Noonday Project. It goes under a bunch of names, and now that we have the internet, where school children can talk to each other on the internet, and so it's like they set it up on usually it's on the Equinox, because that makes a really nice, the math is really nice for your latitude.
Well, there's a school teacher that's done that.
Yeah.
There's a school teacher who has shown up in Gem Panda server, R.C. Meisty. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No.
He is a school teacher, and he assigned to a group of his students to investigate flat Earth, and he gave them links to the flat Earth websites and told them to investigate it. And he didn't prejudice them beforehand.
Okay.
He didn't say prove them wrong or anything like that. And he didn't say he did the proper way. He didn't tell them what outcome he expected. Right? He just asked them to look into that, and he says it was a great teaching experience because they investigated. They all came back with showing that the Earth that their arguments were wrong, and that the Earth is in fact a globe. But it was a good teaching exercise to have them. They investigate it, they look at all the arguments for and against, and come to a conclusion. And I think that is actually probably true. I think teachers, this is a good way to teach. You would say, go out here. Here's this group of people who believe that the Earth is flat. Go out and investigate. And
Right.
here's links. Here's
Right.
and I'll give you support. I'll help you with any questions that you have, right? And then and then we can investigate this and find out. And I think that would be I think more teachers should do stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think that's a good way to teach students.
I think
mean, you're a teacher, so I don't know. I'm guessing.
yes. And the thing is, and I see like most of my colleagues are very fine teachers. I really am happy that I have such great colleagues. But you run into the person who's just sort of going through the motions. And one of the things that I get from a lot of flat earthers is that their science experience was from teachers who said, memorize this and stop asking so many questions. And I think that's
just terrible.
A tragedy. It's a tragedy. That is the opposite of science. And it's like, if that's what they believe science is, well, then no wonder, no wonder they're susceptible to a belief system. I do want to mention something that I just put up on the screen. T. Brown said Eratosthenes assumed the Earth was a sphere and that the sun was 93 million miles away. That's not physically measuring R. Now, let me break down this comment. First off, I'm pretty sure he knew the Earth was a sphere, right? He did not know the sun was 93 million miles away. That number didn't come out for maybe 2,000 more years. I will just say very far. I'm pretty sure, as what Brenda says, that he knew the sun was very far away. So we'll just call it very far. Now, the last point, that's not physically measuring R. The radius of the Earth has never been physically measured. Okay, I'm going to say that again. The radius of the Earth, the radius of the globe Earth, has never been physically measured, because physical measurement means holding up a ruler next to something. And so you can't hold a ruler up to the, drag it from the core of the Earth to the crust and then physically measure that radius. You can only calculate it. You can only, do your geodetic surveying and your satellite mapping, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we know the radius of the Earth 8 ways from Sunday, but we haven't physically measured it, because a physical measurement, you can only calculate it. And that's true for any sphere. Like literally, there's no sphere in existence that you can measure the radius, because if it's a solid sphere, because you can't drag the tape measure from the center to the edge. You can measure the diameter and then divide by 2, but that's a calculation. Anyway, I thank you for your input, T. Brown. Crow, what are your thoughts?
I'm trying to make a drawing. It's about the moon, because I looked a lot into the moon. So I'll try to explain it, and I hope I'm going to be successful in that. Through the moon phase, we can understand what's the separation angle between the sun and the moon. So if it's 50%, that's 90 degrees. This is a simple equation that I don't remember, but I have to conclude every time I go into that topic. So if I see the moon phase is like a certain value, I know that if I pan my camera with a certain amount of degrees, I'm going to find the sun. That's the first information. The second information, how much the terminator line is tilted. Is it like pointing horizontal or pointing up? So that would tell me also where panning, what direction to pan, not how much to pan.
Right.
And so I made a spreadsheet where I feed in it the moon phase, the azimuth and elevation of the moon, and the orientation of the terminator line. And the result given to me by the spreadsheet would be the pinpoint elevation and azimuth of the sun. So
okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with a video called the Moon Terminator Illusion, or at least the concept called the Moon Terminator Illusion?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't see it anymore. I'm not talking about the video. I'm talking about the illusion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you picture the sky to be like a dome, as opposed to picturing the sky as being the stuff that's above this horizontal horizon, if you just think in terms of panning across the horizon, well, that's where the Moon Terminator illusion comes from. But if you think in terms of the sky being a dome, and then you can trace a curved line across the dome, well, then the illusion goes away.
Exactly, and that's why I'm telling you that after I made this spreadsheet, I looked to that situation when there should be a terminator illusion, and I don't see the illusion.
Right.
And it
The
has to
illusion's
be-
gone for you.
Yeah.
Right. Got a funny comment. I do want to scroll back up, and I want to comment on T Brown, and I want to say, T Brown, thank you for your comments. He said the 3959 mile radius that the entire model is based on has never been measured. So for starters, the entire model is not based on that measurement of the radius. We could look to Eratosthenes for being the first guy to estimate the size of the Earth. But if you watched my video, and I don't know if you watched my video, T Brown, but there's 20 different explorations you can do, and not all 20 will conclusively say, oh, the Earth is a globe, end of story, kind of like what Brenda and I were talking about earlier, affirming the consequent. But they will give you data, and I always tell people, and in most of my experiment videos, I say, this is not going to prove the shape of the Earth, but it will give you data. And so T Brown, you could figure out the shape of the Earth. So, quote unquote, the model of the Earth, the shape of the Earth. You could figure that out, and then the 3959 mile radius, just throw that right out the window. Okay? No, that's a sphere. A sphere can have any radius. That you're drinking the Nathan Kool-Aid, right? And what I just said, all the people that say the Earth has been physically measured. Well, you can't physically measure the radius. You could physically measure all sorts of other things, but you can't physically measure the radius. You calculate the radius.
The mistake they're making is thinking that because we can't physically measure R, we can't know what R is. We can know the rate. You can know the radius of a basketball by measuring the circumference. You would physically measure the circumference. You get it like a tape measure, right? Determine the circumference, right? And then do the so then R would be a calculation, not a measurement, but you would know the radius of the basketball, and the same is true for the Earth.
Well,
So the fact that it's not a measurement, it's still something we can say that we know.
Well, for the basketball example, when I looked at basketball, I know that it's a basketball, not a plate, and I don't care about its circumference.
Right.
It's a basketball.
Right, but if we want to know, if we want to say, to assert confidently that it has such and such radius, then we can't cut it in half and measure that radius.
Right.
We just measure the We measure the circumference, and that measurement of the circumference would be something that would have a certain amount. It could be wrong. It could be, and it would have, depending on our tool, there might be tolerances in this tool that we use to measure it that would degrees of accuracy. We could know it to within degrees of accuracy, but then we would calculate the radius R based on the circumference.
Right.
And then we could assert that we know R based on our calculation. So if I have 1,000 jelly beans and I remove 2 of them, I know that I have 998. I don't have to count them all over again. I can just assert that I know I have 998.
Right.
Because I calculated 1,000 minus 2 is 998.
Let me interrupt for a moment. T. Brown made an accusation. T. Brown, if I'm scrolling up, he said, your videos assume a sphere with a 3959 mile radius. That radius has been debunked. And so my challenge to T. Brown is give me your evidence. Name the video, give the time code where my videos, I just went through 20 of them. Okay, I don't know if you watched the video today. I just went through 20 of them, and I only mentioned the radius once, and that was in the bonus, sort of like the bonus round of the moon size video. So you got to put up or shut up, because you can figure out the shape of the Earth, as has been said 100 times, without knowing the radius. And getting to Brenda's and Crow's discussion about size, here's a thought experiment for you guys. What if you had a sphere of like titanium that was like, 4 feet in diameter, and it was buried in concrete so that only the top few inches were visible. So it's made of titanium, so you're not going to drill through it, It's buried in concrete, so you're not going to jackhammer it out. Most of it is under the surface. So that is your starting point. So what you see is basically a hump, a hump of a piece of this titanium sphere. And the question is, what's the radius of that sphere? And it's like, with a little bit of clever, measurements, I would actually argue the Eratosthenes technique would work really, really well. You'd be able to figure out the radius of this impossible sphere. You can't get to the center of the sphere. It's buried in concrete. It's made of titanium. So, so that's kind of a fun little thing. And it's like, well, couldn't you do that on the Earth? It's like, we can't wrap a tape measure around the Earth. We certainly can't drill through to the core. Could you measure the radius of the Earth just based on surface measurements? And
even with the titanium, you wouldn't know that it's a sphere. You would still have just a hypothesis.
Right.
That would say,
let's say you were given. Let's say, some alien race said, I've just buried this sphere. Now your job is to, or it could be a science teacher says, I buried this sphere, and then now here's your challenge.
But what
yes, you are correct.
I was getting to is that a lot of the times in science, we have just degrees of confidence. And so we would say, for instance, suppose it wasn't given to us. We would say, if it's a sphere, then it must have this radius. But we can't know for sure until we do further testing, where we try to dig it out or something like that. And I think that sort of, we may have to make further observations. So science, in my view, is a method of approximation, where you make many different observations and you get closer and closer to the truth. But I would say you never actually get to 100% certainty with science. You always have a degree of uncertainty, right? Things could be different. It could be wrong. So the aliens telling us they buried a sphere, well, they could be lying.
Right. The teacher who set this up could be lying. Right.
Yeah, it might be just part of a sphere, but then but our observations aren't so necessarily going to be wrong. We're going to say, based on this curvature, well, then if it had been a sphere, then it would have a certain radius. It has a certain amount of curvature, is something you can measure. It is a section of a hypothetical sphere of certain radius. So we would say, on the hypothesis, we have this high confidence that this must be the case. And I think that a lot of flat earthers really reject that concept of science. They want absolute certainty.
Right.
And
they demand proof.
Right. And science isn't going to give you, it's always going to give you degrees of confidence, and it's never going to give you absolute certainty. But they want that. Right. And that's religion. That's not science.
Yeah.
They're different, as somebody used to say, different, what did he call it? Overlapping magisterium? Was that the phrase that was used? Do you remember who said that?
No. And I just want to make a point about T. Brown says you just assumed the shape of the Earth is a sphere. Give your evidence. Okay. Tell me where I assumed this. All right. Because it doesn't appear as though you've listened to a single word that anybody has said. And
he's repeating the Nathan meme that if a hypothesis begs the question, a hypothesis isn't begging the question.
Right. If the Earth is a sphere, it does not assume the Earth is a sphere. It is a question. And there was another very important comment that I forgot to. Where's Heinrich?
I'm going to drop out and listen. I'm going to say that there's over 20 people watching, and they should hit the like button, because that helps the algorithm.
Okay, right? Everyone hit the like button.
Hit the like button.
Thank you, Brenda.
Yep.
So Heinrich, why are none of your important questions being presented and answered? I've been answering every single one. I don't think you've been paying attention, but I was using telepathy. So I think you need to work on your skills, because I answered every single one telepathically. So Crow, what's on your mind? And I just want to say to everybody else who's in the panel, Charles says you said it again. What did I say? When did I say it? Anyway, if anybody wants to join the panel, the link is in the description. Yeah. Okay, Crow, I'm sorry. I asked you a question and then I walked all over you.
Yeah. So if some crazy dude came to you, and you're a scientist, and said there's a spaceship that came from the sky, and you took your Geiger, whatever device to measure radiation, and you drive to that place. Now, are you assuming that a spaceship just came from the sky, or just investigating the claim?
Well, it depends. Like, did you witness the spaceship coming out of the sky, or?
No, you didn't. You just some crazy guy came to you and said,
"Oh, some crazy guy is talking to you," and then he has this claim, right?
yes.
Right.
And so you take your gear and you drive towards that site. Are you assuming or investigating the claim?
Yeah. Obviously, you're investigating the claim.
Yeah. So they
Except for if you're a flat
understand
earther.
that
So
concept. Yeah. You're begging the question. You're going
Right.
to.
right. Yeah, so that's really what I want to tackle in my third Nathan video. I mean, the first one being Dr. No, and the second one being the one we just saw today. The third one, I really want to investigate like this whole series of logical fallacy accusations. So T Brown is having some listening comprehension. It is physically impossible to measure R physically. You can calculate it, you can estimate it. We have wonderful precision with the WGS 84 and these global satellite surveying. My understanding is that like the surveying satellites, they actually calibrate their instruments over the salt flats in Bolivia, because when they get like a little bit of rain on the salt flats, you have like an inch of water over like 100 square miles, and you're like, oh, that's a perfect mirror, so they actually calibrate their instruments over the salt flats. But yeah, T Brown, it's impossible to measure. All right, I dare you to take any solid sphere, not a sphere cut in half, but I dare you, T Brown, to take any solid sphere and physically measure the radius. Not calculate it, physically measure it, and it won't be done. It can't be done. So there goes that argument.
I have a practice for T Brown to do, and then maybe we can measure physically the radius of the Earth. The distance from London to New York, measure it physically, and then we would measure the radius.
Right, exactly. Let me get out my ball of twine. So that's actually funny you should mention that, because I'm going to say that no one knows the distance between London and New York. In fact, I would argue that it is unknowable. And you may say, well, how is that? And it's like, well, London is an entire city. Are you going to take it from Big Ben? Are you going to stretch the tape from Big Ben, and then New York City is a big city? Where are you going to do it? The top of the Freedom Tower, the Statue of Liberty's torch, So it's like, define London, define New York. And then, is it going to be as the crow flies? Are you going to do a cord that runs underneath the ocean? So it's like so many things where the concept of we can't know the distance from New York to London because there's actually more details that need to be revealed. T Brown, you're funny. So my challenge to you, T Brown, is do any, and I mean any, of the explorations on my channel. It would involve you actually watching the video, and I know you don't want to watch any of those videos. But I don't know what Bow Bells is. But anyway, thanks, John Watson. So T. Brown, do any of the explorations. Now, that's not going to prove the shape of the Earth, but it's going to give you valuable data. And then you repeat with another exploration, and then another exploration, and you're going to start building up a body of data. And I think that's going to reveal Mother Nature's truth to you. That's what I'm going to say.
Charles, do you remember the old good days? When flat earthers used to go to Glober's videos and attempt to debunk it.
Yes.
Like tech. We don't see that anymore.
Yeah, well, that's because they've already debunked all the globe videos, so they know the Earth is flat. So now it's just a matter of waiting for the rest of the world to catch up to them. Oh, St. Mary Le Bow, a church in London. Okay, so that would be like a starting point for a measurement. Because the thing that I thank you, John Watson. I always talk to people about there's this. You have to Google it. It's a PDF somewhere. It's called The Relativity of Wrong. It started out as an essay, and I think he might have turned it into a book. But The Relativity of Wrong, Crow, it's kind of what I was talking about no one can know the distance between New York and London. It's like, you could estimate it to the nearest, mile or the nearest, kilometer, but like to what precision? It's like, well, you can't know the distance between New York and London to the nearest, angstrom, so it's like, so Isaac Asimov's point is that just because there are certain errors in your measurement, some folks say, well, your measurement is wrong, capital WORONG, which means you have to throw the whole thing out. If you can't have perfection, then your measurement is wrong. If you can't measure the curvature of the Earth, therefore it's flat. It's an interesting little essay.
I think if you stretch a measuring tape, the metal one, not the leather one.
Okay.
From London to New York, from any spot between the two, and it's completely say flat if the Earth is flat, because I don't want to go through the headache of curvature. And you pull it after it's being totally stretched. If you pull it, because iron has some elasticity, or what do you call it? It's not elastic. It's I don't know. I mean, if you pull it, it's going to stretch a little bit, so the measurement will be wrong.
Right. Exactly. Because the strength of materials, steel, even the hardest steel, it does have some flexibility.
Yeah, flexibility.
So T. Brown says, what am I exploring for, Charles? So, the thing is, T. Brown, you seem very sure of yourself, using logical structures. Here's the thing, T. Brown. If there's the truth and one person says, I know the truth, and then you come up to that person, you try to argue with them. Yeah, but because of this logical structure and that fallacy and begging the question, this, you're not going to change the person's mind. You're just throwing a bunch of logic and rhetoric at the person. Okay? So T. Brown, I'm recommending, because it seems like you've drunk the Kool-Aid over at Nathan's house. That's great. You've swallowed that argument. You believe 100% of his arguments. However, you have not made any measurements out in the real world. Okay? So right now, all you have to go on is one family of accusations, logical fallacies, rhetoric, et cetera, et cetera. So I recommend that you get yourself outside, right? I mean, if you are searching for truth, as Stringer News says, if you're searching for truth, don't stop at the first bologna sandwich. Because otherwise it's just rhetoric. All right, T. Brown, it's just rhetoric. You can just argue. You can argue all day. Space is fake. Rockets push off air. There's no, sea level is level. I mean, you could just argue all these things all day, right? But get yourself outside, make some measurements. That's what my whole channel's about. Most of my videos are between 15 and 20 minutes long. Some of them are 10 minutes long. Get yourself outside, all right? Get yourself outside and make some measurements. Now, they're not going to change your mind in a heartbeat, but you will be letting Mother Nature tell you what she's like, okay? And I never said the word proof, okay? It's just, T. Brown, it just seems that you're more convinced by rhetoric than you are by physical, real-world measurements. And, okay, so T. Brown, exactly how am I straw manning? Describe that. And then Luke Filewalker says, question to flat earthers in the chat, why is all navigation based on the globe? It's a conspiracy, I tell you, Luke Filewalker, it's a conspiracy. And all right, so I think we're kind of winding down a little bit. So I really appreciate unless somebody else wants to join in. I mean, I don't want to go too long. I think we've been going almost an hour. I try to have these things go less than an hour. So then how does GPS actually work? So T. Brown. It's not what I'm measuring, all right? It's not about me, T. Brown. It's not about me. It's about you, okay? My channel is dedicated to helping people get outside and make careful measurements. Calibrate them, have some sort of consistency, apples to apples, make careful observations and measurements. That's my goal. It's not about me and my measurements. It's about encouraging you to get outside. All right, that's all right, Luke Filewalker. I appreciate that. All right, students. When I say students, that's how I address my class. I really appreciate everybody. All your kind chat messages, and thank you very much for it. This was the after show. Thank you so much, Crow. Crow, you have any final words? I think Crow's stepped away for a moment. So I really appreciate everybody who's made some really great messages in the chat. I do want to say that if you happen to know, there's something in my private chat. If you happen to know somebody who would like a civil discourse, please have them email me. Oh, Crow is having a call. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right. We're winding down. Crow, do you have any final words before we shut down the broadcast?
Yeah, to T. Brown and any flat earther in the conversation, just go to any video from Flat Earth Math to Charles and see what the video is talking about and debunk it and start from there.
Okay.
Just don't make comments in the live stream. Just make it there for everyone to see how you debunk Charles. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Crow. So I want to say thank you again. This has been Charles Breeling, aka Flat Earth Math, with our after show of Is R Required in in my explorations. All right, I'm signing off. The chat will close in a couple minutes, so just be mindful of that. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.